Hey, hey, welcome to another episode. I am Dagny.
I'm Damali.
And in this episode, we want to discuss with you feminine energy, a topic that I think all of us would be interested in learning because every single one of us carry feminine energy, regardless of your gender or identification. And what we want to go into in this discussion is reflecting on the commercialization and capitalization hijacking
That was
of
very
what,
dramatic.
yes, of what feminine energy is in terms of how it's being defined and this relatively recent wave of discussions and content and debate about how to utilize it, how to split it in two, and different things like that. And then go into our own personal experience about navigating feminine energy or adapting it, and even share our take on certain characters in books or movies or in society in general that we feel sometimes have been typecasted in these feminine energy definitions that don't really fully give what it needs to give. So that's what we're going into right now. So to start, Damal, I'm going to throw it back to you in terms of starting us off. Starting us off with, for now, what is the definition that's being pumped up when it comes to feminine energy?
Yeah, it kind of, I feel like people have seen this a lot in, I don't know, some Instagram, media, TikTok, where there's this ongoing thing, which I don't think it was always a thing. I don't know if it's like more recent, but this whole thing of like feminine energy versus dark feminine energy. I thought it was just one, but apparently we are two different characters. Light feminine energy is what I've understood it's more about like more childish, it's like softer. Um, and like dark feminine energy is supposed to be like you're very like very assertive or very manipulative, or you always get what you want and no one can mess with you, and you're supposed to just play like you're supposed to play like these mind games with people. And I think one example I can think of is from like Gossip Girl, where I don't, well, if you haven't watched, but there's like Serena and Blair, and Serena is like kind of like the light one, very playful, light, fun. Everyone wants to be around her, things like that, and she's very light and everything. And then Blair is kind of the one who has darker hair, who's the more like apparently manipulative one, and the one that is always doing like evil things and is the villain and things like that. And the thing is, like, all women, actually everyone has feminine energy, and all women can both be shy or assertive or whatever they need to be. There's been this like separation, and then media has pumped it up a lot more. We're showing this kind of you can't be. It's like you can't have both or be both. You have to like choose on any given day what you want. And then there's this like constant like um focus on like the male gaze. Like it seems it's always about what, like, oh, do this for the so that men will think this about you, or do this so they'll look at you this way. It's like it's always about like that's why you have to do all this extra stuff for a man looking at you, as opposed to just being feminine whenever, because well, you're always a girl, right? You're always feminine, so it shouldn't be like that. So yeah, so we're kind of like delving into that, why that's we have such fascination with that, and also intriguingly enough, I don't really hear that about men though. Like there's no like there's light feminine energy and there's dark feminine. There's never a talk about, oh, there's light masculine energy or there's dark masculine energy. Like it's just masculine energy. So I'm always kind of confused what we're kind of trying. We're continuing trying to put ourselves in boxes and put labels on ourselves. And I'm like, actually, we're just humans. And in this conversation, we're just women. Like we don't have all this separation we have going on. So that kind of is a little definition of that. Kind of like we think more like villains, like dark feminine energy are like the villains in the story. Light feminine energy is like the good person, the angel that doesn't do anything wrong, and it's just like very cutesy and childish and light and things like that. So that's the start about that.
Okay. So then,
Yeah.
when we focus in on those layers, I feel
Yes.
like you've noted, I'll say we can start with or go with two of them. First, this concept of focusing on using feminine energy for male gaze or male acceptance. Now, how we already noted at the beginning, feminine energy, everyone has it, regardless of your gender. So it already, on the commercialization of feminine energy, is already very disingenuous and distorted, because it doesn't make sense to really use feminine energy only to get a man. Because, I mean, is that what men are doing with their feminine energy? Because they have it too. I don't think so. I don't think that's what they're using it for. So, and not all women want men looking at them anyway. So why would you need to utilize feminine energy for that? So that already is unfortunate that they focus on it in that way. And I think it's also quite concerning when you look at, I'm not sure what the demographics are of what people are really looking to soundbite short form content for this type of information. But when you're going at it like that, and it just seems everyone is teaching you how to be manipulative and how to use people and make everything a transaction that you get the upper hand in that, and masking it to make it seem like this is what women liberation looks like, or this is what the new era of freedom is supposed to look like, is unfortunate, because it then is another layer of distorting and almost dismissing the importance of feminine energy and the importance of feminine freedom, which again, all of us carry. So this is not just a woman issue. This is all of us are having to deal with this. Another layer to that, which I think will segue into the next part of this conversation, is where the definitions that we're having to navigate when it comes to feminine energy, when it comes to being elegant, when it comes to having good manners, when it comes to being perceived as so-called valuable due to how you are carrying your feminine energy. And I feel we need to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of the definitions that we're having to, I think, need to redefine, a lot of them are coming from patriarchy and white supremacy and puritanical ideologies, where the image of feminine energy, elegance, or if we're going to speak only to women, of being so-called ladylike, is looking at putting a white woman on the pedestal of beauty and femininity, if that's the right word to put it. Yes. And again, this is not to beat down on white women, because I'm sure we have white women who also listen to our podcast. So we're not saying you are the problem, but unfortunately, the system has used you to be part of the problem. Okay? The system. So, I mean, it is what it is. We just got to hold ourselves accountable for it.
Exactly.
We can't go back to the past to change it. So we need to be responsible for it now. Okay. And so unfortunately, again, making feminine energy be that's only for women to be dealing with. And the more you can make yourself to be closer to the proximity of whiteness. So make your voice be small, or make your voice small, or if you can be more pale in skin tone, the better. If your hair could be a straighter texture, the better. Or even, and then it gives the vibes of like the Bridgerton show, the My Fair Lady movie, what else? What's that one with Julie Andrews and Anne Hathaway? Princess Diaries. Like, this notion of, and then all of these that we're speaking of, even though Bridgerton has some Black folk, it's still very much like you're still utilizing the image of a white woman to be the ultimate definition of what so-called femininity is supposed to be. And so when, in this day and age, when we're trying to define that for ourselves in the era that we're in, we must be very cognizant that we're dealing with definitions that were not made for a lot of us, that actually were made to ostracize, diminish, disregard, marginalize, and exploit the rest of us. So That doesn't mean you got to throw it all out with the bathwater, but a lot of it does come across as toxic in that regard.
Very.
Now, let's segue that into the notion of good manners, elegance, ladylike. Now, this connects to what I just noted of like the definition of what is elegant, what are good manners, tends to be very much from a Western viewpoint. And a certain demographic of the West are the ones who can determine whether or not you are elegant. All right. So case in point, when colonizers decide to go to other indigenous spaces, whether it's in North America, South America, Africa, the Caribbean, and you see folks being themselves, their beautiful selves, eating with chopsticks, eating with their hands, walking around barefoot, walking around with different types of shoes. And you Western people need to insist that that's not elegant. So I need you to wear a corset and a weird white wig on your head and wear this powder on your face. That doesn't make sense because it's hot outside, but you need to do this because, because that's elegant. If you're not that, that must mean you're a savage. And this notion that which further perpetuates the definitions and layers of racism that the Portuguese invented of everything that's not in this box of elegance that we've decided to create is a savage. And that is the excuse to exploit them and abuse them because they're basically animals. And the same thing you do to animals, you can do to them. So when we're talking about what's ladylike or not and how to be elegant or not, we need to be careful and be really holding space for, again, that should not be just one definition or one box. Now, with the content I've seen, because Damali and I, we did some research for this to take note of where are people's heads with this. And I took note that a lot of the content that wants to speak about or respond to the definitions of elegance seem to feel like it's what's holding women back, or it's keeping women in a chokehold, that it's not ladylike to do this, it's more ladylike to do that, et cetera, et cetera. And for me personally, I take note in my experience, for us, we do come from a home where our mama taught us good manners. So we know how to use cutlery. We kind of automatically cross our ankles when we sit down without thinking about it or, little things, mannerisms in this way that would fit the category of elegance is something that we were brought up with. But the intention behind it, at least the way in which I internalized it, because these are mannerisms that I do now, continue to do now without thinking. It's just normal for me to carry the fork in my left hand if I'm going to use a knife. But if I'm only using the fork, well, then I might put it back to my right hand because I'm only using a fork or a spoon, right? Or how I use the napkin, or how I carry myself, or how I interact with people, how I look you in the eye when I shake your hand. These different things that I was taught, for me, I internalized it as, well, this is just normal. Like, this is I figured this is how you're supposed to be outside, to not be rude, because we were brought up to be like, you should not be rude, right? Now, another layer to that is like, of course, certain people and parenting, you want your children to show up correct because they are a reflection of you. Because technically, the way you show up in the world, in some shape or form, people are going to be like, this must reflect on what kind of household you came from. At no point in time did I internalize that mama's teaching me this so I can be groomed to be an eligible wife. Or I'm being taught this so I can be groomed or molded to be valued in society, like the so-called Bridgerton way or Pride and Prejudice way of doing things. I've really just thought this is normal. I kind of thought everybody did this because, that's what we were doing at home. So whatever. And so I think the content I'm seeing where we're juxtaposing ladies who are now, or men also are showcasing, this is how you should pick up your purse. This is how you should leave a room. This is how you hold a glass. These sorts of etiquette things, which technically people who went to etiquette school, when that was a thing back then, I never went to etiquette school, but at a time when going to etiquette school, that's what you would learn. Now, technically you can get those things or those lessons for free online. And the response to that from others of being like, this doesn't make any sense. It's weird. We don't need this anymore. We're in an era now where you can do whatever you want. And it doesn't make sense for women to have to do these sorts of things. And I can do whatever I can dress the way I want. I can do whatever I want. I can hold the glass upside down if I want. Like the notion that being elegant should be the same as you're a snob, or you think you're better than everyone else, or you possibly are exploiting others because you're being perceived as of a higher value. I feel like, or you are being manipulative. That's why you're carrying yourself in this way. I feel like we, again, are missing the point and possibly, again, trying to put people in one box. So I can't speak for everybody who is elegant, regardless if you were taught that as a child or you learned it as an adult. But I could say for me, it was taught as something as a child, and I just continued. And it never crosses my mind to carry that as a label of superiority over other people or looking down at other people. And maybe it's possible because of also being given the capacity to be open-minded. So to me, elegance is not only the knife and the fork. You can also be elegant eating with your hands. You can also be elegant with little dainty jewelry. You can be elegant with big, bold, chunky jewelry. Like both, the elegance comes from, to me, the elegance comes from the inner confidence, the inner comfort in your own skin, the way you are carrying yourself as if you own the room because you own your energy. That to me is what elegance is, which is very different from what we are taught or what the cotillion, debutante, Bridgerton vibe teaches us about what elegance should be. But I do take note that that did influence me and what the images I saw of what I was gravitated towards. So for example, when I was younger, I loved Audrey Hepburn, Lena Horne, Ella Fitzgerald, and those like Turner Classic movies. Like, so the era, the fashion and the aesthetics of like the 30s, the 40s and 50s was something I really loved. I do take note that a lot of those images, even though I mentioned a few Black American singers, a lot of those images in movies, they were all white people with straight hair and didn't look like me. Now, at that time, I don't think I internalized that to mean so I could never be elegant because that's not me. I just really loved the aesthetic and the look and the character and the storyline and just maybe just part of the fantasy of it. I do recognize, now that we're having this conversation, I do recognize how over time, fast forward to now, where I have adapted that inspiration to fit me. So if you have seen me, you know my hair is natural and I coif it. Yes, sometimes I will puff it out to be the afro or the afro puff, but I also coif it and pin it up in a way that kind of looks like a version of what people in that era or in those movies would rock their hair. But instead of me straightening my hair to do that, like what Ella Fitzgerald or Dorothy Dandridge did, I do it in my natural hair state. So it's just bigger and stands up on my head, right? And my wardrobe, yes, it's considered elegant, but it's also colorful. It also has print. It also has brands from different parts of the world. Sometimes there's a cinch waist. Sometimes you can't see my waist. Like, you know, like sometimes it's maybe more masculine. Sometimes it's more feminine. Sometimes it's a fusion of the two, but all of it is still elegant. And so I think that further personifies how I internalized what elegance is, which is more of an inner confidence, an inner acceptance, where yes, I have a taste for refined things, for sophisticated things, but I don't feel they go into this light or dark. Like I have to be childish in order to like this, or I need to be manipulative in order to get this. And so when it comes to this elegance, ladylike, well-mannered, there's no problem with being well-mannered. but we need to be careful of understanding that it should not, I feel we're in an era now where it's no longer being utilized or no longer needs to be utilized the way it was before in determining whether or not you are valuable in the way you're using your feminine energy. And a final point to that before I throw it back to you is I feel like the distinction between trying to remove the light and dark, claiming you're either light or dark. I feel with feminine energy, we hold both. It's one. What determines whether or not you get my light side or my dark side, what determines whether or not you're going to get my soft side or my savage side is how you respond to me. If I feel safe in this environment, then it's normal for me to be soft. If I don't feel safe, then it's normal for me to be savage. And I don't mean savage as in like we're going to kill everybody, just savage in that like there's a bit more assertiveness needed to maintain the boundaries. But the soft side also is maintaining boundaries. So it's not one or the other. We hold both within ourselves. I think the focus should be more on having a healthy balance between those two sides. And we can get into that later when we talk about these different characters too. But that's what I want to take a note on as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think the main issue is of course, always the patriarchy. Like, I feel like it's like the society that's making us have to put ourselves in boxes, which is kind of interesting to me because I thought the whole idea of like when we talk about the gender expression too, about the whole what is feminism and like and how we don't really subscribe to the definition of feminism because it doesn't really resonate with us. And then to add to the elegance part, there's also the part about like man hating now, where it's like, oh, it's cool. Like if, like feminism is about hating all the men and watching them burn. Like, no, I don't think that's what it's about. Right. Like I think we all need each other as humans to work together to do things. And again, with this light and dark energy thing as well, also hard to relate to it because I'm kind of like, I'm just me. Like when I want to do something, I do. If I don't, when I'm saying no to something, it's not because I'm like, oh, like as if it's like a power, like, oh, let me access my dark energy, take it out of my body, and now I am assertive. Oh, like, it's like, no, I just don't want to. Like, what is this? So I always find that like it's some kind of power. Like, I remember watching this video about like, oh, well, if you want to be, more light energy, just like move your hips from side to side more kind of thing and things like that. And I'm like, what? Like, if I don't walk like that, why do I have to, what if someone doesn't have hips? Like, and all these like, it's, or doesn't have like, I don't know. But yeah, this constant thing. And then the dark energy thing too, where like, oh, we have to wear black and we're always wearing all these dark colors and we're very manipulative and we're very like, it makes me think of like, well, we'll go into this more, but like the Poison Ivy and Catwoman and like Angelina Jolie, many of her characters, it's like if you are assertive and you can stand up for yourself, automatically dark feminine energy, and that means like being a villain and then of course we're not going to go into like, sometimes the white girl in the show is the good guy and the black girl or anything dark, or if you're black or like that is seen as dark feminine, like that's automatically is like a villain. The darker one is always the villain, which doesn't really, that doesn't really how it works, right? And I think, yeah, it's just, and I feel like because we're trying to figure out a way to live our lives different from before because of this society and because of the way patriarchy has kind of shaped the world. And so it's like we try to figure it out, but then we like overshoot and then we make it this big. It's always like we make everything like a meme, like it's some kind of like joke. We're like, yeah, here's my TikTok. I'm gonna tell you how to be light. And I'm gonna tell you how to be dark. Dun dun dun. Like we're like Power Rangers getting powers, and I'm like, but I think everybody's like that. And then also how we never talk about how everyone has feminine energy. And no, that doesn't mean you're a girl. Like every human has feminine energy. So it's like interesting that and then also this idea that if you're feminine, I guess because I don't know if that's a reason why they changed it, but like how feminine is seen as weak, or like if you're feminine, you're weak or softer. And I'm like, that isn't feminine isn't weak. It's just a different type of energy. What are you talking about? And then I guess we're like, well, they're saying feminine is weak, so let's do light versus dark. So, and then I think that also pits women against each other when we do that, because then we like to do what's that new thing? What are those things? There's the pick me girl. Have you heard of those? Like there's the pick me girl, and there's like the pretty privilege, and all these weird names and labels we add to things. I'm like, we're just humans. Like, just be yourself. And I think the main thing is everyone find confidence in what you can be confident about, right? That I think that's the main goal in life, is to be, and that comes of age. I think for many people, where being assertive or being confident should not be a, like, I feel like confidence should be a given. Why is it always like it's a surprise? Like, oh my gosh, why are they so confident? Or it's seen as like we're poking at it, or it doesn't make sense for us to be this weird stuff like that, or or even like just like weird like jokes and memes we make about that, when it should be normal. Like it shouldn't be seen as like, oh, you can either be this or you can either be that. And I'm like, I'm just me. Like we talked about this as gender expression as well, where it's like I just do things the way that I feel is the way to do them. And then also, of course, I was raised in the same household. So the same thing with the manners, like, yeah, we learned how to eat with a knife and a fork. We learned how to walk in heels, even though I still don't really like heels, but I finally got to walking in heels, or understood how to use them. And yeah, and the book on the head, remember the book on the head, to be like,
Mm.
make sure you know how to like be. And I noticed it too. Like I'm like, when I eat with a knife and a fork, like I eat it a certain way. I don't like eat, like I don't use my feet, like I don't try to use my feet with I mean I can't anyway, but it's like there's just a way you do things, or even like opening the door. Like if I'm going in a building, I open the door behind me to
Mhm.
check if someone's behind me to go through, the things like that, or like if there's like a food on the table and there's one piece of bread left, you don't just go and eat it. You ask everyone, hey, does anybody else want I
Mhm.
mean, I'll still get it anyway, but you ask, you're like, does anybody, like, does anybody want the last piece of chicken or the last piece of meat or bread? And then like things like that, where I don't even
Mhm.
think about it. And I don't do it for the male gaze. I just do it because I thought that's what you do to be polite and have manners and be, make it easier to live in this society. I mean, it's just about living in the society, right? Um, so I find that interesting, where we make this thing where it's either you're this or that, right? And then with the dark energy, it's like this idea that where you're trying to manipulate people all the time. Like it's like you can't be assertive without being manipulative, even though those words are completely different. They're different. Like assertive just means I want to do this or I want to do that, and I can say what I want and not just go with whatever anyone else is saying. Manipulative is like doing like messed up and evil things to get what you want and to trick people into being around you. And I'm like, first of all, why would you want to be with someone where you trick them to be around you? Like, I don't like, why spend so much energy for that, right? Like I've heard there's another video I watched where the girl was like, oh, like, if he texts you, like, don't text back, kind of thing, or you tell him you're going to be somewhere at 7 p.m. and then don't show up, like, and then he'll fall for you, kind of things like that. And I'm always like, wait, what? Why are we always like? Why do you have to trick people to like want to be around you or work with you or do things like that? I don't think, I think the main thing is to say what you feel. Like if you want to do something, you say it, and you don't have to be assertive and be like rude to everyone and be like biting people's heads off and things like that. But there's a way to, I guess, carry yourself. And I do think that I think about what you said too about like Audrey Hepburn, where she also was seen as like the epitome of like elegance and the way she held herself and the way she did things and blah 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 and all this stuff. Um, and I just think we've kind of shifted in an area that, again, I don't know if I fully relate to this new era of dark and light, and it's like this new thing, and everyone it's on this like bandwagon people are doing. Um, and I think everyone should just strive to be their own version of feminine, whatever that means to you. Which hopefully that leads, there's confidence in there, and there's assertiveness in there, and be your own feminine. You don't have to like act like you have to pretend to be someone else. No, you can be confident in your own self without having to act like, you know, some other person. And then that to segue into some of the more movies and things like that. Things that come to mind to me are like Poison Ivy and like Catwoman and Mystique from X-Men and the Dark Phoenix. And of course, like the Dark Phoenix and X-Men, it's like first she was good, and then when her powers were too much for her, then she becomes Dark Phoenix and she's like bad and we have to take her down kind of thing because she's too powerful and all of this. And then it's like Poison Ivy was very meek and quiet and mild and all this, all scared, and then she gets thrown into this thing that all of a sudden she becomes this villain, right? I don't know if I'm aging myself, but Uma Thurman is the Poison Ivy I think of, where at first she's all meek and mild, and then she becomes this, and then she's messing with she uses her powers to mess with the Batman and mess with Robin, and it's all of this manipulative, weird stuff kind of thing. And then you have Catwoman, who also very, you know, meek, mild, soft, doesn't speak, and then all of a sudden her boss, who's a jerk, by the way, like spoiler, he literally tried to kill her and attack her. Why are we not talking about this? And again, aging myself, Michelle Pfeiffer, Halle Berry, you know, kind of thing. Eartha Kitt, of course, right?
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like this weird, you know, kind of thing, and then or always seen as bad, like for Mystique in X-Men, she's always seen as like you have to hide, or there's something wrong with you, or you have to, and it's always like dark stuff, even though they're all very smart and intelligent and assertive and can do what they want, but they're seen as like evil on the other side, or we don't know, like Catwoman is very dubious. We don't know, is she good? Is she bad? I don't know. We don't know. And it's kind of like, you know, I think Harley Quinn also is another one where it's like this kind of strange, like, is she really like, I have to go back. Are they really evil? Like, does it make like, why are we making them evil? Why are they always evil? Why is it that if you can speak up for yourself, that's seen as evil? But then men can speak up for themselves, because I think Batman is always speaking his mind, isn't he? Iron Man, like, aren't they always talking? Like, but yet Batman, who's always wearing black and always just in the shadows, there's always dark, always cloaked in darkness all the time, but he's the good guy, right? Like, it's so weird to me. Let me get this straight. So Catwoman in the shadows, dark, oh my god, evil, bad, we don't know who she is. Batman is always in the dark all the time, always depressed and all this stuff, and yet he's a good guy. And I'm like, wait, is it because he's a man? Oh, I see, that's why, right? So it's like this interesting, like, weird thing they like to do that doesn't really happen with men in the same way. Men is kind of like, they enter the room and like, oh, of course the man's going to do this, of course. But for women, we just, oh my god, we don't know what to do with her. Like, she said no to one question, whatever will we do, kind of thing. Or she's labeled as like a jerk because, oh my god, how can she speak up and things like that. And also it also made me think of an Eartha Kitt video. I might have sent this to you, Dagny, but it was a video of an interview she had with some interviewer. I forgot the name of the interviewer. And the way that Eartha Kitt acted in that interview was so kind of very like assertive and very kind of, and you can tell that the interviewer was very kind of like intrigued by her, but also intimidated at the same time, even though she was just like vibing, doing her thing. But it was a very interesting exchange to see that and that was many years ago. I don't know the name of the I'd have to look up the interview. Maybe we can link it later.
Right.
But yeah, so it's this thing where like, oh well, like the reason why we have to be quiet and soft is because it's all for the men gay, so we don't scare the men away, like, kind of thing, and all this stuff. Or like or men that don't like, oh, I don't like women that talk, like I can't deal with that, like why do they have opinions? Why can't they just sit and be quiet? Otherwise I can't handle this. And I'm like, what? Like, why? This isn't about you. Like, it's what I feel in the moment to do, kind of thing. So we thought it would be interesting to explore this like topic about that. It's like, what? Since when? I'm trying to think, when I was young, when did this light versus dark thing become like it's like where did this come from? Because I don't think it was. I'm trying to think back, like how many years ago this became such a memeable thing. I should say. So yeah, it's kind of. I think we're just feminine, because I'm trying to think about myself. Like when I don't want to do something, or I'm not doing it to mess with anyone, or it's just because if I feel I want to do something, I'll say yes. And then if I don't have time or I don't feel comfortable, I say no. Right. And I also like what you said, Dagny, about the way people react to you is how you act back to them. Right. Like if I'm comfortable with you, then obviously I would be a little bit more limber, a little bit more, maybe more flowy, childish, whatever that is. But if I don't know you or you're like a random person or I don't feel comfortable, then obviously you're going to be more closed up and more like ready, like fight or flight, right? Kind of thing. So it's just, I don't know, this whole thing of like we say like, oh, everyone can be whatever they want, but then we continue to put people in boxes and labels and strange things when we all know that everyone acts the way that they do. Everyone's their own individual person kind of thing. So that's what I would say about that. And then Dagny, what do you think? Like to add to that?
Yeah, I do like the different characters that you brought up. And I do think that looking at Poison Ivy, Catwoman, Mystique, Maleficent.
Maleficent, yes.
Yes. I love her. She's like my totem. No, but I do agree that it seems like, because in each of those character stories, which we have to note, any book characters and movie characters, I feel always have some sort of, not prophecy, but maybe some kind of prophecy or reflecting back to you what's going on with us and society.
In the real world.
Yeah. Yes. And these different women characters, what they're known for and why they were put in the villain category, it seems like it's because they reacted in a way that they cannot be controlled or tamed. Yes. And that's why they're the villain. Each of them were wronged. It's not like they just woke up one day and decided, oh, I want to go and just, destroy everything. It's like each of them were either raped or stolen from or abused or beaten up and left for dead or left in the cold, right? When initially before that, well, Maleficent was slightly different, but for the others, before that, they were I guess one would try to make them like naive, innocent type vibe, which is easy to manipulate, the naive and innocent. That's why apparently, allegedly, supposedly they got into the experience that they got into. But the fact that as a character, they continued where they became even more powerful when they were seeking revenge. Not to say we should be spending energy on seeking revenge, but that is what enabled them to tap into their power, because before that, they were sleeping on their own power or actually just giving it away. So to me, it's like, yes, I love Poison Ivy. I love Mystique. I love Catwoman. But you take note and I think part of why I love them is because it's like, this is how it's illustrated of a woman taking her power back, or feminine energy taking its power back, because men, you are carrying feminine energy too. So this, and it also brings me to characters like Medusa, who is seen as the villain, but it's like she was raped. And then you come back and be like, so we're just going to destroy everybody who's be raping people. But somehow she's a villain, when it's like, no, I'm just destroying everybody who rapes people. Why is that a problem? But, you want to look at me, you're going to turn into stone because you obviously lost the privilege of seeing me. That sort of taking your power back in that way. Or another character is Lilith, who is allegedly, supposedly, apparently was in the Garden of Eden before Eve. But she was kicked out, apparently, because she was not submissive enough, quote unquote. And Adam just couldn't keep up with her. And so unfortunately, as the story goes, instead of Adam, I don't know, just like trying more to keep up with her, it's like, no, we can't have this, kick her out. So kicked her out of the garden to be with, I don't know, wolves or monsters. I don't know, whatever was outside of the garden, because y'all never tell us what was outside of the garden, because it must have been
always within it's always the apple. What about the apple? What about the fruits outside of the garden?
What was outside of the garden? So outside of the garden, right? And again, she was like kicked out to be left for dead. She didn't die. Instead, she basically was like took her power back outside, but then always had to learn this lesson of like, she of course, feels like, well, now I must destroy everything because you don't care for me, kind of thing. So this constant looping of seeking revenge and balancing that with taking your power back is what she deals with. If you're into astrology, we actually all have Lilith in our chart in some shape or form, which is actually quite interesting and fascinating to learn about yourself. But that's for another conversation. But I take note that these different variations of illustrating what it looks like for feminine to take back its power, we take note that it's always within the gaze of the perpetrator of the abuse. And it's through the gaze of who would feel threatened if the feminine took back its power. That's why we must cast them as the villain, or that's why we must cast them as, you don't want to be like Medusa. You don't want to be like Poison Ivy. You don't want to be like Jezebel, because look what happened to them. When it's like, no, these are women who took their feminine energy back and will hold you accountable for whatever you do. As in, like, it's not about mess around and find out. You're just going to find out because there's no time to mess around. Okay, that is the energy that they're bringing. And I feel like for those who want to understand better feminine energy, I think you got to understand that persona, we all carry that within us as well.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that version of us will come out depending on what we're dealing with, what we're navigating in our reality. The lesson in that is you do deserve to own your power. The lesson in that also, though, is trying to balance not to destroy everything, even though there's a lot to be mad about. But what these characters end up doing is that they turn to be more destructive because they are angry. And they're very valid to be angry. And there is nobody in all these stories. Did anybody come to help out Catwoman? Did anybody come to support Poison Ivy? Did anybody give Mystique a hug? Well, I mean, there was that one movie where Magneto and Mystique were like the same age or something for some reason. And I don't even know how that works. So somehow it seemed like they were friends or something. And I was like, I mean, if that works for you, if that works for you.
She keeps on changing her.
Keeps on changing. But I loved that in that scene for that movie. Yes. I don't fully remember why the timing was like that. But I loved that scene where Magneto was telling her, why are you always hiding behind these different personas? You're beautiful as you. Which is her different, like the green, blue, alien looking type thing. Like, I loved that because it's true. Throughout the time, she was always, shifting with other people, even though that gives you the perception she's free. But actually, it's a costume that she's hiding behind. So I loved that in that particular movie where she's free to walk around in a figurative nakedness or figurative confidence in her own skin. And actually holding and not needing to destroy as much, because now it's like, oh, I can release this now then. Like, it's okay for me to be me and I don't need to seek that validation from others because I can take my power back from that. So when it comes to how we perceive feminine energy and how we've been taught about light and dark, I think we need to hold space for these other layers of these characters. Like, I would love, similar to how we have a movie focused on Maleficent, I would love to know Poison Ivy's story. Like, how did she get to this point? I would love to know Harley Quinn's story. Like, how did she end up with the Joker? Did she even want to be there? Like, I know they were in the asylum or whatever, but like, did she always want to be smiling too? Or was she the genius compared to, and the Joker basically was the front, but she actually was the genius behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to know Mystique's story by herself too. Even Ursula. I want to know why Ursula was in the cave, Like, she was very powerful, but why is she just off in a cave somewhere as if like she can't move or nothing, All of them, I think, have such beautiful, really beautiful stories of how can they, like, this is what it looks like for the feminine energy to navigate being left out in the cold for dead. And the fact that she can come back and destroy even more. She's actually even more powerful when it comes to the destruction if her anger gets to that point, that even the masculine is petrified of her. Because the level of the depth of destruction she can do, the masculine energy actually can't even touch that, right? So the concept of feminine energy should be, we need to respect this power because of how utterly powerful it is, which is why it's no surprise that this power has been casted as the villain that we dismiss, or you don't want to be dark. You don't want to be that type. Or, well, no one would marry Poison Ivy, so you don't want to be like that. There's a reason why we've been taught that way. Even, of course, we got to bring up Disney.
Yeah, I was about to say the Disney princesses.
We got to bring it up, even though in this point of time that we are recording this podcast, Disney is being boycotted. So please continue doing that. But we're going to talk about the Disney princesses that we saw back in the 90s. All right. And take note of how you casted Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Belle. They're all light. They're not all blonde, but they're all white. They're all soft. They're all innocent. Some of them are asleep for the majority of the movie. Yeah. But they're good. But then you see Esmeralda. And what is Esmeralda casted as? She's brown skin. She has dark hair. She's outside for her people and will not take any mess from anybody. But somehow she must be, you don't really, she's not considered the good guy, is she? She's not even always included when you see the Disney princesses in a group. You know, when you have like the pictures or when they're in Disney World and Disneyland and they're together and stuff. Did you invite Esmeralda to the Disney brunch? No, you didn't. Why? Because in her story, there's a priest obsessed with her because he wants to like rape her as well as kill her because it's her fault that he has some weird sexual problems with himself. How is that her problem? How is it? And then you make it seem like because she must be a prostitute because she has dark hair. She must be some sinful something because she has brown skin and she actually loves herself and she's just outside speaking her opinion. She's outside taking note that the gypsies also deserve to be respected. So if you're going to come for my people, I'm going to come for you. But that's a problem. Like she's awake for the entire movie, but she doesn't get an invitation to the Disney brunch, the Disney princess brunch.
This shade to Sleeping Beauty, though, like she's awake. Unlike Sleeping Beauty, she is awake.
I'm just saying. Oh,
and Snow White also goes to sleep.
She goes to sleep too. Snow White is asleep as well. But we're fine. She can come to the Disney princess brunch. She can
Ariel's
come
voice
to the.
Is gone, you know.
Yep. So, but we got to understand though that wasn't random. That was done on purpose. Okay. And we've all internalized that because we all saw these movies when we were a child. And this, in some shape or form, defined for us what feminine energy should look like, because we're also taught that feminine energy is only for women. And this is what women should or should not be. And so technically you should not, even though Esmeralda can be funny at times, but how many of you are dressing up as Esmeralda as a kid? Now take note, I dressed up as Esmeralda as a kid for Halloween one time. Thank you very much. But for others, you want to be Cinderella. You want to be Belle. You want to be Alice in Wonderland. All of them are considered, they're good. They're okay. Because they were childlike and they didn't.
They're naive.
Say that again?
And also because they're naive.
There you go. They're naive and childish and innocent. And their role in their story was just for a prince to find them. Their role in their story was just to be a benefit to somebody else. Well, Esmeralda, I feel, was one of the first, because I forget if the Hunchback of Notre Dame, how do you want to pronounce it? I forget if that movie came out before Mulan or if it was reversed. I can't remember, but because Mulan also is a very different character, even though I know the Disney version is not her real story, because I know the real Mulan people were like, that's not what she did. Why are you doing that? But the Disney version of it, Mulan was also very different of like, she's not asleep and she wasn't even looking for a prince and she can fight just as best as you. Right. So, and then Tiana was a frog for the entire show. Why? Why did she have to be a frog for the entire story? Like, what are we doing? Do you see? So, and those are not lost to me of like, oh my gosh, it's just a children movie. But it's like, no, this comes into play as well of how we are conditioned to view the power of feminine energy. It's not only about being the ultimate belly dancer. It's not only about walking around with bells on your feet, on your ankles, with the hair and all of that. It's not only that, but we got to understand that like the splitting the light and dark to make it seem like when the feminine has been disrespected, all of a sudden now you are a villain because you will not take disrespect lying down asleep. That's a problem, because that further conditions you to believe the feminine should always be a doormat. And that's not the case at all. The feminine should be respected because actually the feminine is the more powerful side of who you are. The masculine can get things done in the physical realm, yes. And it's just as important. That's why we all carry it. But to get to that other level, that other vibration, that feminine energy needs to be able to breathe. And all of it that's in it needs to be able to breathe. And so that's why when we be talking about how there's a lot to be mad about when it comes to the feminine energy, there's a reason why all of us can maybe agree that there's this just like this anger that you're carrying. You don't know where it's coming from. It's the generations of feminine energy being disrespected. That doesn't mean we now need to burn it all down, even though sometimes we may feel like it might be better if we did burn it all down, right? But that's what we need to, I feel like the focus on, if you want to learn about feminine energy and hold space for it, it should be, how can we collectively, individually do better in actually respecting and supporting our feminine energy, as opposed to diluting it, distorting it, cutting up, and capitalizing on it to be manipulative and basically feed into the lower vibration ego of what the masculine needs to maintain control over, to maintain the illusion of superiority. That I don't think is what we should be utilizing feminine energy for.
Yes. Snaps. Round of applause. Yes. I definitely agree with that, because we're always like, why are we like cutting things in half and doing weird stuff? We're like, oh well, the light is on that side, so that's fine, but you don't want to be on the dark side. Like, there's like this weird thing, and then like in forget like Ariel, like you gave up everything, like you gave up your voice, you gave up your royalty, your whole family. Like, I'm just gonna leave y'all, and I'm just gonna chill with this random prince I just met, and everything's gone. I'm like, wait, what? Like, but this is so, and then for Snow White too, and Sleeping Beauty, where you're so naive, you don't know anything. You're just like la 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 la, like, like there's no care in the world, and that, and it's like we want that because naive is like you said, people want naive, that it's easy to manipulate that. It's easy to mess with that and get what you want and do all that kind of thing. Whereas it's very hard to deal with Poison Ivy, right? It's very hard to deal with Catwoman. It's very hard to deal with Mystique when they're in their power and they know what they have to do, right? And then, and I even remember a clip. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I think it was something from Doctor Strange or something. And I think it was Doctor Strange. It must have been the second or the third one. And it was with Wanda, or the Scarlet Witch or something. And I think the Scarlet Witch had said something about how people react to Doctor Strange differently than how they react to her. Like, if there's something that goes wrong or goes bad or something like that, there's a different reaction to her than him, for obvious reasons. Because and then because Scarlet Witch also has in some ways been seen as, well, in WandaVision she was seen as like a villain, because when and of course this happens after she fully realizes her powers and knows her power, and kind of thing.
And again, in that, just to take note, in that show, it was coming from of anger and grief.
Yep.
That she created that whole alternative world to try and maintain her sanity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it came from and then also, and then that also has the other layer of how, like, emotions being weak. I'm like, Wanda was not weak with her. If anything, that sadness made her stronger, kind of thing. Like, so, which also further perpetuates the whole thing about this thing about feminine energy being weak. I'm like, weak where? Like, how is it? That's not weak. That's not how that works. When you fully embrace your feminine energy, you fully embrace your masculine. That gives you, that's power, and then it means you get both. Like, masculine and feminine is more power. It's not less power. So cutting it and making it into a weakness and all this stuff, I don't know how that doesn't really move us forward. And I don't think it helps either to separate it or dilute it or make it like, this is for, if you want to say what you need to say, and if you want to be able to say no and be assertive, then that means that you have to be in the dark bubble. But if you don't want to say and do whatever everybody else is, then you are in the bubble that is like light kind of thing. So yeah, and I find that interesting, and it's weird that I mean, even in this day and age, like we know all this information, but yet we keep on creating characters in this weird. I'm like y'all know what's going on. Like we know what it's about. Why are we making? And that's true. And also to add with Tiana, like she was a black princess. If I have to add that too, and then we turn her into like a frog, and I'm like, oh, okay, because that's. Yeah, I mean, I think there was some other, I don't know how it, but some other movie they're making of another female who's like in the main role, but I've forgotten what it was called now. But we'll see how that one is. But yeah, I think the main thing is to find our own version of femininity and confidence and assertiveness, and you don't have to be one or the other, because you see that too, where girls are like, oh well, maybe I have to be more assertive, or oh I have to be more mean or disrespectful to people to get what I want. And I'm like, I don't know, you don't have to be rude and disrespectful and manipulative to what, like, where did that come from, right? Yeah, so I don't think and then of course that usual thing where if sometimes if a man does something, it's fine if he does it. If he misbehaves, it's fine. But then if a woman does it, she's like a jerk, or she's a bitch or something, or like there's something, or if she has something to be like, it's like you keep on poke. It's imagine like you're just like poking someone, and then when they get angry, you're like, oh my God, you're a horrible person. Why are you angry? That's what you do to women sometimes. That's what women have to go through sometimes, where you like continue poking them, and then like with Catwoman, like with Poison Ivy, like it's not like they woke up like that. Like they weren't born like, oh, I'm gonna become this. They didn't do that. That something horrible happened to them, and they're reacting to it, and no one is helping them or asking them, hey, what happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like it was very there was horrible trauma that they went through, and then
Mm-hmm.
they became that way, right? Um, and yeah, so I find that interesting, where being powerful sometimes is seen as like, oh, if you have power, you must be a villain, and if you don't have power, then you are the good guy. And I'm like, that's very different with the male superheroes. That's very different. That's a very different vibe that they have there. And then or the dubious thing, like even with Black Widow's character,
Yes.
where she also is like this dubious, like, is she good, but sometimes she's bad, but sometimes we don't really know. Like it's like this gray, weird area kind of thing with what's going on and blah blah blah, which is very different from like, her counterpart, like Captain America, and like how he's like seen and treated kind of thing, or of Iron Man or any of these other superheroes doing what they do. Um, or it's a character that like they're not like the main character. They're kind of more of a side character, so they can have some power, but not like, I think about like Superman, like Lois Lane,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like obviously I don't think Lois Lane is, I don't think if she ever become, I think she's just the human in the thing. She doesn't become a superhero or anything. Superman is the big, huge superhero kind of thing. And Lois Lane does have like power. She does say something, but it's like, oh, but she's not that powerful, so it's okay, because she's just a human. So it's fine. The main thing is Superman, right? Or the same thing with like Spider-Man, where you have but again, she's like she's always like the love interest, and is like like she doesn't stand alone as much. She's very much like connected to the man. Like it's all about like the man kind of thing, and how and we also use her as like a crux for the man kind of thing. Where like, oh my God, if she's in danger,
Mm-hmm.
or if she is like, she's like the kryptonite kind of thing, like, or something happens to her, then the man is like, oh, why did you do that, and everything kind of thing. But when that happens to him, he does not become the villain, right? With Superman or Spider-Man, when they get angry and go off, and when their lover is killed, they don't become the villain. They continue to be the superhero, right? Or even if they cause all this destruction, they're still seen that way. Whereas that's a good point to bring up, actually. Yeah, with Spider-Man, Superman, they're still the good guy. But then with Wanda, when she lost her love, she's seen as the villain, and I'm like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
what? So the men can lose their love, the love in the world, and then they are still seen as good guys. But if the woman loses it, then she's seen as a villain. I'm like, that's a little bit interesting. But yeah, I think I don't even want to wrap this up so you don't go for like 10 hours as we do. But I
Indeed.
think the main thing is like you can be your own version of feminine, and there's femininity and masculinity in you. and you just tap into it depending on what you feel and what you feel comfortable with. But I think that comes with age, right? Getting to know yourself more and be more aligned and be confident, and be aligned. Like if it's about how you feel and how something feels in your body, and I don't think you should reject that. I think that's the main thing. Confidence and assertiveness doesn't mean you're a villain. It just means that, you get you if you don't stick up for yourself, then who's going to stick up for you? That kind of idea, right? So I think confidence is the biggest part of that, and the more we have of that, then you don't have to feel the need to be, oh, am I going to be light today, or am I going to be dark feminine today? Which one should I choose and run off with, right? So interesting topic that we could explore more about. But
Yes.
I'll digress for now.
Sure. But yes, no, I think this was a wonderful conversation. And for you listening, I hope it possibly broadened your horizons or further confirmed what you have already been wondering or thinking of. And I would say that the main takeaway is that, yes, our feminine energy does not need to be compartmentalized and chipped away at for others' comfort or appeal. I think we definitely individually and collectively have been conditioned to forget how powerful feminine energy is.
Yes.
And we need to get back on that for all of us, because I feel like that would be mutually beneficial for all of us to better understand how powerful that is and how that can balance and work with your masculine energy within you and your masculine energy within other people. So thank you again, as always, for listening, and let us know your thoughts on any of the variety of things that we spoke about, or if there's another avenue or layer of this conversation or topic you would like to hear our insight on, let us know, and we might include that in one of our next episodes. So thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey, thank you. Happy New Year, and stay blessed, stay loved, and stay healthy. Right. Happy New Year and stay healthy. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.